Hi, and welcome to AI for UX, the space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current on AI innovation. So I'm John Whalen, the founder of Brilliant Experience, and we've got a psychology-driven product innovation firm. So in each installment, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI-enhanced research tools and dive into its inspiration and how it might benefit you. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Avi. Avi Yashchin is the CEO of Subconscious AI, and it's a platform that lets teams skip traditional market research survey methods and instead simulate and predict user behavior. So just a quick note, these videos aren't product endorsements, and we always pay full price at Brilliant for all the technologies we use, and no one's getting paid. It's just to learn more together. So with that, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. I'm delighted to have you here, Avi.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to be here. And we don't replace market research. We say we augment market research, but it's directionally correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Avi, I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
for Subconscious, who is the sort of target audience for Subconscious, and what kind of pain points or things does it address?
Yeah. So we found kind of two um, kind of super users. One is an insights professional who really wants to reduce the size of their experiments. One of the difficult things about quant market research is many of the experiments fail. And they fail for a different reason. Qualitative research fails because, whatever, 46% of respondents are fraudulent or, whatever the number is today. Quant research fails for a different reason. It fails because um, either the experiment is designed incorrectly or you're recruiting the wrong people or, when you ask your respondents about your product. Price is 99% of the outcome. So it's really the insights professional that, let's say they have, a couple, a 20, 30, $50,000 experiment. Um, um, what we can do is we can take that causal discrete choice experiment and we can maximize the amount of tension in each of the questions such that the experiment can be done for, $5,000. So we can really reduce the cost of quant research by, at least an order of not at least, but by an order of magnitude. Um, and then that's really exciting for those users. We call it kind of agile market research. Like instead of performing market research once and designing an experiment one time, they can design the experiment, run the experiment synthetically, say, oh, I didn't ask that question right, or maybe I want to include this other attribute. And so then what we notice is they'll actually run the experiment, a dozen of times synthetically before they say, hey, Avi, we're ready to launch and run this with real humans. And so that's the kind of this whole kind of new capability that we're giving researchers, which is nice. And then from the kind of CMO perspective, when our buyer is a CMO or when our user is a CMO or a CRO, we find that they use the product a little bit differently. Traditionally they would say, okay, I want to test this new type of makeup with, Gen Z moms. Okay, great. So they have, you know, one specific buyer at one specific part of the user journey. But with synthetics, you can actually, um, you can kind of perform this whole other exercise where instead of running one single messy kind of incomplete plan, you
Hmm.
can run like tens of thousands of simulated plans, across all the parts of the user journey, across all of your different product lines, across all of your different potential users to see kind of, where the biggest lift can be. And so that's kind of, we're calling it kind of market science instead of market research. But that's kind of this new capability for CMOs.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's fun to have a sort of totally new tool or new approach we can take. So that's really why I wanted to ask you. And actually, you gave one example, but I just wanted to see, like, are there typical scenarios when a team might be using Subconscious? So you obviously mentioned CMOs and some others, but what are the if I'm that person, how would I know this is a great time to use Subconscious?
Yeah, it's kind of when you run up against the limits of focus groups or surveys, right? Like focus groups and surveys famously don't replicate. Um, Part of the reason you have this reproducibility crisis in the sciences um, is because certain domains really fail to replicate poorly, mainly psychology. Um, and so when you ask people their opinions and you get a bunch of opinions, um, sometimes you'll say, okay, would you like to buy this product? And 80% of people will say yes. Okay, sure, but then when you roll out the product in the market, maybe you get a 5% lift. So it's not would you like to buy this product? It's would you like to buy this product for, $800 when compared to another product with these different set of attributes for $500, right? If you ever want to put like the outcome of a qualitative research exercise into production, right? If you want to understand, how much will people respond to a message? What will the lift be? How should I price? Who should I target? What features should I market to which customers and why? What lift should I expect? Right? If you ever want really like investment grade research, that's when you need to go from a kind of qualitative framework to a quantitative framework. The other place is if you're really concerned about the say-do gap, and we could talk about that later. But typically, quant research is done as kind of the second step. So if you've done your focus group, if you've done your qual research, and you want to know how much people will pay for these wonderful insights that you've discovered, that's when you want to start thinking about some additional methodologies.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. And there are some things that where people talk about synthetic users or things like that. So I think of subconscious as very different. But what makes subconscious unique in your mind, or better than other options sometimes?
Yeah, we really don't focus on the synthetic as
Mm.
much. We really focus on the causality. So every experiment we run is a cause and effect experiment, which means, which means every experiment is randomized, controlled, blinded, and you can make causal claims from every one of our experiments. So that's kind of one differentiator. Um, the second is some people will say, oh, I have these synthetic personas and this is valuable for some reason or another. And then they'll train on like LinkedIn data or they'll train on Twitter data. And there's actually this great article that came out that talked about language models getting brain rot. And you don't want to train language models on social media. It causes the language models to act um, quite unreliably. So we don't do that. Our second differentiator is a customer will come to us with their CRM or their customer data platform, their CDP, and we will actually load up the data, their own customer data, and generate a digital twin based on CRM data. And more importantly, thirdly, our kind of last differentiator is we don't believe in listening to people's words. Um, this is going to be this is going to be a hot take, John. But you know, Steve Jobs famously did not trust market research. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would say a phone booth on every corner. Henry Ford said, people would say they want faster horses. If you ask most American men what kind of coffee they like, they say, I would love a dark, robust blend. And then you run the experiment and they all choose or prefer the light and sweet option, right? It's the science behind Starbucks. You can't rely on what people say. You can rely more on what people do. And so our third and biggest differentiator is we focus on observing people's actions. And when we build models on people's actions, we can predict people's actions. If we build models on people's words, we can predict people's words, but that's, reliably unreliable.
Really interesting. So actually, this feeds really well into what I wanted to ask you next. Was just okay. So if I have this tool, because majority of people right now don't, What will it be like working with a tool like yours? So how will I work differently and kind of think differently because I've got this new option?
We say that it allows you to reduce experimentation cycles. So, previously, if you had some sort of landing page, let's say, and you wanted to A/B test the landing page, maybe you needed 6 weeks of traffic or 12 weeks of traffic before you got enough data to decide A was reliably better against B. Maybe you needed 6 months of traffic to say A is better than B with these segments. With synthetics, you can build the model digitally, and that 6 month, A/B test can be a 2 month validation of a synthetic model. We can generate the model for you. We can say we think product B will outperform with segments, one and two, and um, you know, uh, product B will outperform with segment three. And then it can take you a couple of weeks to validate if the synthetic assumption is right or wrong. So it's really compressing those business experimentation cycles.
Cool. Um, and, you know, this may actually not apply as much to you, but I wanted to ask. So, in a lot of cases, people are concerned about things like bias or hallucinations, things like that. Um, is that relevant in your case, or how do you sort of make sure that there's sort of, I guess, ultimately sort of accuracy behind what your predictions are?
Yeah. We test accuracy in three ways. Number one, we benchmark against published economics, sociology, and psychology studies. If we look here, right, this is one of my favorite props. Um, this is kind of the world's market research that has been that has been replicated using language models. Okay, so some people may say, "Oh, that's a lot of papers, right?" It's really not that many. There's maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen studies where people have replicated humans with language models. We have a team that's transcribing the world's economics, sociology, and psychology experiments into a method where we can kind of benchmark against them. So number one, we benchmark against reality. Number two, if an enterprise comes to us with an experiment they've run, they can run the experiment on our platform. Keep your answers private, right? Because maybe we're testing and training on the same data. Maybe these experiments are in the training set for the language models, right? So it's questionable. Keep your study results. Let us replicate the study, and then you can tell us how similar or dissimilar they are. Number three, if it's a new study that you have not run, we can actually run the study, and we recommend that we run the study in parallel with the synthetics. So you run the synthetics, then if it's a large margin of significance, let's say it's a 7-figure, 8-figure launch, we can run the study with humans as well to validate the results.
Cool. It's so interesting. And so, um, yeah, it's such a different style, and I don't know anything quite like what you've got. So we've been talking a lot about this. I think it probably makes sense to have a few moments for you to show us a little bit of how I might work with this and what a typical flow might be for the person who's got subconscious. So let me try to get the technology going here, and I'll start to share a screen with you, and then you can maybe just tell us a little bit of the scenario that you want to walk us through and set the stage, and we can go from there. So here, let's see.
Lovely.
I think I've got your all six LLMs graphed screen up right now.
Yes. Well, so this is well, you can't really, can we read this?
You
The
may,
text is a little,
yeah, there you go. That should be good.
I don't know. I don't know.
You can explain to us what are we seeing here?
Yeah, so this is an example. So one of the unique things about Subconscious is that we're the only company that I know of that because we're the only company focused on quant research, true kind of behavioral science quant research, we can actually benchmark our results against humans and we can say how similar or dissimilar to humans we are reliably. Um, And so this is an example study. Was a replication study for an immigration paper. Mueller 2014 was the paper. And in yellow here, you see human results. And then the different colored dots are the language model results. So you can see kind of similar shapes. And so we're going to quickly go through what a result looks like, and we're going to show you an example of when the language model bias is similar to humans and when the language model bias is dissimilar to humans. Because there are cases where it's not the same. It's
Hmm.
which is why we always recommend, running with humans as well. So, okay, so the question is, who would you prefer to immigrate into the United States in 2014? Women are preferred to men, right? You see these dots to the right. The more educated you are, the more likely we are to accept your application. The better English you speak, the better you speak English, the more likely you are to be accepted. And then we don't care where you're from, with the one exception being Iraq, right? So in 2014, humans have a pretty strong negative Iraqi bias. But notice this language model here, which is the Mistral language model, has a strong positive bias towards Iraqi immigrants. But that's actually the French language model.
Hmm.
So you can start to see how the bias is, similar and different, and you can see how the bias of language models is similar and different as well. So measuring bias is, you know, for a certain segment of our customers, part of our product.
Yeah, really interesting, and to see I don't know, just so you are really getting these human. So actually, let me make sure I've got it. So have I yet seen? So we've got the different models like GPT-4 and Mistral and so on. So is this showing us also how subconscious is this subconscious with that as the underlying brains, or is this just the model itself?
These are all subconscious replications using different language models to
Got it.
simulate the respondents.
Okay, cool.
But subconscious builds the causal models. It runs the experiment. It does the recruitment.
Did this suggest to you that there are some models that are more suited to doing behavioral modeling than others?
Yes, sir. Yes. And actually, if you look at our leaderboard, we actually track, oh, I need to make this a little bigger. Excuse me. Um, we actually track the performance of different language models in different domains. So certain models work better in certain domains. There's no kind of reliability here yet, but we're working on experimenting with additional models. But it's nice we can measure slippage. Typically the Claude models are the most human. Um,
Interesting. And sorry, I keep saying that because it's just so different. Than I'm learning a lot from you. So how would I typically? Do you plan to show us a little bit of how I would do a flow in subconscious? Yeah. So
yeah, sure.
oh,
Let's walk through it.
okay. So please, yeah, I'll let you go ahead. This looks great.
So let's say, well, John, for some of your students, are there consumer products that they would like to study or learn more about?
Let's see. So we have a fair number in the sort of consumer packaged goods kind of neighborhood. So maybe that would be like soft drinks or products for pets, or it's a real wide range actually. So yeah, why don't
Let's
we
look.
go with soft
Tell me about
drinks?
a new.
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me about a new type of soft drink that you'd like to understand consumer
right.
behavior
Well, I
around.
guess so there's a lot of things now that are the sort of uh, non-alcoholic.
High protein.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
non-alcoholic.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. We. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. High protein, non-alcoholic drink. Um, that's a new one, actually.
Well, but saying high protein non-alcoholic is like saying sugar-free water.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so yeah, so sure, so high protein. Yeah, whatever you think is appropriate here. So,
Okay. So we typically ask causal questions. So every step of the way we have this agentic experience, which helps you design the experiment, helps you recruit the right respondents, helps you, select the type of attributes and levels, and then interprets the results as well for you. Um, so here you see we asked a question and it gave us a couple of suggestions, right? How do fitness enthusiasts
mhm.
evaluate trade-offs between high protein drinks? and the protein source, what influences loyalty, right? Let's go with this second question here. Well, let's go with this one actually with prices. Stick with this one. So we can run the experiment over different locations. We can run the experiments over different time periods as well.
And
We
I'm sorry. I'm assuming the time periods are in the past. This isn't predicting the future.
you can
Hmm.
predict
How interesting.
time periods in the future, but we don't yet have a data set to use to validate.
Got it. Clearly.
uh,
Fair enough.
but when we run experiments in the past, we notice the differences. Now we're not going to get like week to week resolution. Like typically the resolution is month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. It's a little bit longer term than that. We can also generate personas from we have a database of about 250 million American individuals with 100,000 data points per individual. We can do searches. You can load your own data, whatever you need here. And then you can select the different traits you want to study. So maybe for a high protein customer, maybe innovation matters, maybe health consciousness matters, maybe um, let's see if political ideology matters. Who knows? Okay, so now you have the object of study here. Um, so what we did was we had agents that went out into the internet, and we actually searched what products exist in the high protein segment, what attributes do they sell on, what do they price on. And so this experiment was actually designed from real life products. And that allows us to build a really high resolution market simulation for you at the end of this. All right, so let's run the experiment. Boom. We should see some confetti. Yahtzee. All right. So now what's happening, John, is over the next 5 minutes, we're generating hundreds of personas from real individuals. And then we're asking each of those individuals, which of these products would you prefer, A or B? And we're doing a multivariate examination of the A versus B. And then we're able to tell you which types of individuals prefer which products and why.
And this is a very consumer-based one, but I guess I'm trying to imagine like things for doctors or something for accountants, or I didn't know if this is more focused on the consumer side. I mean, it's certainly I'm sure it's strong on that side, but I wanted to ask, like more broadly, is this applicable in sort of all sorts of situations?
Brilliant. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We did some work a couple of years ago for the opposition party of a large dictatorship. And the problem there was that the citizens in that country um, would never admit to not voting for the dictator.
Mm,
But there was an election coming up. And so the question is, how do you design anti-dictatorship messaging without being able to like honestly survey
right.
your citizens? So we did an exercise there. In the healthcare space, people use our product for adherence,
Hmm.
right? So the question is, I
Sure.
only have 15 minutes with a patient. I'm going to assign some sort of intervention. What do I say to the patient to guarantee the intervention? What types of, future engagements, after the doctor's visit will maximize adherence with the protocol,
Hmm.
right? So any time when behavior change is your objective, these methods dominate.
And then it was clear that you could do conjoint analysis here. Um, is there any notion of like so some people have like a concept in Figma or some sort of graphic, and I didn't know if this is purely thinking from a sort of conceptual level or a behavioral level, or if we could also have anything to do with the way we present probably marketing messaging or visuals and things like that.
Funny you should mention that, John. We are launching today our concept testing product.
Okay, I didn't know. So
I
okay.
that's right. That's right. I will send you your $2 for the promotion later. But yes, that's exactly right. So we can test images, we can do A/B tests. This is used a lot for testing packaging, for testing image ads. Some people use it to test their UI, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if I have my UI here, um, what's my customer effort score? How easy is it for the customer to understand what I should do next? And so yeah, it's the same exercise here. All right, so this is our homepage, right? So how easy is it to understand what we do? Right, and so you can automatically generate statements about the question. You can upload your questionnaire. You can give respondent instructions. So with a couple of clicks, right? Questions about value
Mm-hmm.
prop, understanding the services, messaging, right? With a couple of clicks, you can do a full message test,
Very cool.
right? So
Are,
synthetic customer effort, synthetic, you know, NPS.
are you finding it's more sort of, I don't know, I was going to say the dedicated researchers, or is it like sort of more broad? So the product person or marketing person who might be using your tool right now.
I would say that the power users are insights teams and
Mm-hmm.
CMOs, but we do find product teams using this for pricing. We do find CROs using this for segmentation and identifying who in an org to sell an enterprise product to. But it's typically insights teams and CMOs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
We would like it to expand, but you know, we're trying to teach we're trying to teach people kind of this PhD level topic, which is how do you design, run, and interpret a business experiment. So we're trying to take business experimentation and kind of, we're trying to productize business experimentation. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually it will be everyone, but right now those in the business that already
Mm-hmm.
understand business experimentation best are the insights and marketing team. So that's where we're getting the most traction early.
Got it. Okay, well here let me let you continue on with what you were going to show. I don't want to sidetrack you too much. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. Let's go back to the experiment results. Let's see if um, yeah, so this experiment is still cooking. So you can see some other experiments we ran. This was for a senatorial candidate. This was for a drink manufacturer. This is for an electric vehicle product. This is a concierge, an AI concierge. Um, one thing you can do is you can chat with your personas, right? So you can build a digital twin of all your personas and you can kind of chat with them and you can interact with them. This is a kind of a toy that we offer users just to kind of keep their attention while the experiment is executing. Um, what's your
Hmm.
favorite kind of high protein drink? Right. So
Uh,
you can kind of go through this exercise. You can
so
do this exercise at scale with
do,
synthetics as well. Yeah.
I was going to ask, do these represent, so logically you could say here's like an individual that's got certain facets to them, and then this is
Right.
representing that individual, or it could be a class of people, like a population. How do you try to do this? What do you, yeah, I guess just what is this representing?
Yeah, great question. Right now, every interaction is based on a real human individual,
Mm-hmm.
a real individual. Um, we do have the concept of mindsets and segments, but we don't allow you to interact with the mindsets in the same way. We can do that in the future, if that's something our users are asking for.
Interesting. Um, we're finding that when senior stakeholders get a chance to talk to those representative uh, simulated personas or personas come to life, um, that they get actually more interested in the real user data rather than just saying, I'm going to get all my questions answered from this and not have to do any more studies. It's interesting to see them kind of come full circle to being more interested in the user data as a result. Because they're like, if this is
Oh, I
true, that would
love
be
that.
really interesting. So, um,
I love that.
okay, cool.
Yeah, we are working on ways to surface more of the raw customer data faster. All right, let's see when this experiment. Yeah, this. Yeah, I'm not sure why this is taking so long.
We gave you a tough one. Is there a representative one we can take a look at?
Yeah, of course, of course. So this is an experiment about travel concierge. Um, and so here you can see kind of which features are the most important when it comes to, let me check the dependent variables. Um, Pricing structure for purchase. Yeah, purchase. Right, so price is the most important. So when determining an AI concierge, price is the most important feature, then automation level, um, then the average trip distance. That's interesting. People don't really care about the team size, the number of monthly trips, or the brand when deciding to buy an AI concierge. So if you're doing kind of very long
Mm-hmm.
trips, then they will consider it. So you can start to see here, um, the more the customer charge, the more the company charges for the AI product, the less likely the individual is to buy the AI concierge product, right? So dots to the left cause somebody to not purchase this AI concierge, dots to the right cause people to purchase the concierge. Brands, people don't really seem to care about the brands. Um, it seems like even with the AI concierge, people really want um,
Mm-hmm.
human assisted, right? So even when they sell the AI concierge, having a human assistant is really important as well. So that's kind of interesting to see. Average trip distance doesn't really matter unless you're traveling 0 miles, in which case you wouldn't need an AI concierge. So this is an example of kind of a poorly designed experiment. So if we were running this experiment again, we wouldn't allow people to buy an AI concierge when their average annual trip distance is 0 miles. And so you can see how this is a great example of having kind of one bad attribute level in your experiment can kind of throw off your whole experiment.
So are you typically helping to guide? I'm sure there's a range, but does your team help to guide experiments, or is it more that they're just learning over time?
We do, yeah. We have a fully managed service where we
Mm-hmm.
will design the experiments with your customers. And then there's also a self-service option. That's more for insights teams. But
Mm-hmm.
typically we usually have a couple of engagements that are kind of full service engagement first. And then when the customers get comfortable with the platform, then we can hand it off to the customers for self-service.
So, uh,
Um,
so seeing, you can go ahead. I was going to ask if that was like the typical kind of sort of power that I'm getting from subconscious, if there are other things as well. So yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, well, let's keep going. Oh, look, the high protein experiments came in. So let's take a look at that. John, how long would it take you? So we've done this in 9.5 minutes. How long would a typical conjoint take you to design, execute, and analyze?
Yeah, no, I mean that's it's going to be weeks. We've turned it around in maybe two, having known the client really well and what they were needing even before they asked us, um, but knowing the population. But in general, right, it's not going to take me 9 minutes. I know that for sure. So right, uh, right, we're talking about a week or something at a minimum, and I would think more. And so let's see what we've got in minutes.
Yes, sir. All right, let's make it a little bigger for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so here, price is the most important feature for the high protein shake, which, by the way, for most consumer products, I want to say for probably 70% of consumer products, the most important feature is price. When price is not the most important feature, typically you're looking at your Veblen goods or your Geffen goods or your luxury items. Okay, number two is protein content. Number three is the product brand. Number four is sugars. Funny enough, sugar matters for the high protein consumer. Who knew? And then lastly, flavor and the serving size
Hmm.
don't seem to matter, and the fat doesn't seem to matter.
And this is based on purchasing behavior, or is this so is this?
This is based on simulated purchasing
Yeah.
behavior.
Okay. Thank you.
Exactly. Bingo. Well, it depends on the dependent variable. We can do simulated yeah, purchase. We can do simulated awareness, simulated consideration, simulated returns, simulated social pressure. This experiment specifically is simulated purchase. Okay, so let's take a look at the results here. Um, So the higher the price, the less the likely the individual is to buy. It seems like you kind of have this nonlinear fall off over about $4. People don't really seem to mind the different flavors, chocolate, or vanilla. Um, the protein, the higher the protein, the more likely the individual is to buy the product. People seem to be agnostic to calories. However, I will say that the calorie band is quite tight,
Hmm.
um, which is interesting. So if you expand the calorie band, you might start to see the slope or the significance of calories change a little bit. Maybe less than 100 calories matters. Maybe more than 300 calories will start to matter. So that's interesting to see. People don't really seem to care about the fat. And then now here you have willingness to pay, right? So if you go from uh, Core Powers chocolate protein to Premier Powers chocolate shake, they'll pay an extra 50 cents for the Premier protein brand, for example. For the protein count, if you go from 23 grams or less than 23 grams to over 28 grams, so if you increase by what is that, 5 grams, you can charge an extra 55 cents. Right, so this tells you the willingness to pay for each of the features. We can do a nice market simulator. This takes a second to load. Excuse me. Let's go to the other things. Here you can actually see the preferences based on the different traits that we were simulating, right? So we said that maybe political, maybe your political leanings matter, right? So here, centrists, let's do conservatives versus liberals, right? Why not? Those are the extremes. Um, It seems like there's very little difference. It seems like liberals are a little bit more price sensitive, especially when it comes to the high end. Um, it seems
Hmm.
like uh, conservatives care a little bit more about the protein content. Yeah, so you can start to really segment here. But segmenting by demographics is not really descriptive. So here we can actually segment by hidden traits, right? So health consciousness, um, premium justification, value sensitivity, nutritional trade-offs, right? So here you can start to really investigate the different mindsets, not on the observed demographics, but on the hidden traits. So here you see casual health seekers versus analytical health optimizers. And you can kind of see what those personas look like and how they make their decisions differently and how they're willing to pay differently.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're providing is even though they might not outwardly, we actually don't know what they might say about this, but that there are a couple latent variables here that might predict their behavior in willingness to buy or perhaps messaging that might be more persuasive to one audience than another.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Huh. Really cool. Um,
And then with the market simulator, my favorite thing is if you show the different products. So these are the actual products in the market with their actual attributes. We can actually tell you what changes to make to your product in order to maximize revenue share.
really interesting. So, are you getting? I guess I wonder about big brands that would actually try to cover the breadth of the market for something like, premier ketchup versus low cost ketchup or whatever the case might be. Um, are you seeing groups try to, I don't know, I guess you can answer almost any question about this, but I was trying to see how you might position things depending on where you were heading in the market.
Our foundation customers really come to us with a lot of different questions.
Mm-hmm.
We're finding that this really allows for this net new capability. So one thing we're able to do is like put a behavioral scientist on everyone's desktop, and that really kind of changes the game. So we have this agent where you can kind of chat with our agent, and you can understand your customer buying behaviors across awareness, consideration, purchase, across your different mindsets, and that really seems to help. It's almost like a rag on top of all human behaviors. The most surprising result of this experiment is how little consumers care about flavor.
Right. Makes sense. Well, good. Do you think we've done a good job at showing people some of the major features here of subconscious?
Yeah, I think this is a very good introduction. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, here, let me bring back just the two of us here, and I would like to. You, this has so much effort and so much. I don't know. I'm always impressed at everyone, and you very much included, at how much you put into this, and you know, it takes so much drive to go from a twinkle in your eye or cocktail napkin to this. So I guess I did want to ask you just what inspired you to create this product and for this field and got you to where you are now.
You know, I've um, I've always wanted to understand why, right? Like I started on Wall Street, and people were just buying and selling we were buying and selling companies for the purposes of making money. But I was saying, why are we buying and selling these companies? Like what, in a lot of cases, I was doing high frequency work, and we didn't even know what the companies did. The only reason we were buying was because, we thought they were going up, which is, um, not very socially responsible. After my time on Wall Street, I ended up starting and running a lot of socially responsible businesses because I kind of wanted to do the opposite of what I was doing there. Um, and I started the country's largest green job school, and I started a business unit at IBM, this Watson Education business unit, and I worked in clean tech for a little while, and I was always surprised that the externalities, right, the why was not being included in the capital markets, like the value of education, the value of a healthy environment, the value of mental health. None of these things are measured in dollars, and none of these things are included in GDP. So after my last company was acquired, I said, look, I want to see if I can help with climate change, right? That was the exercise I started. And so I funded an experiment, and I ran it, and I wanted to understand why people weren't motivating to kind of take care of the planet. And I discovered that a third of the people thought that climate change was not real. A third of the people thought climate change was real, but then it was too late to do anything about. Um, and they were kind of working together to outnumber those that thought climate change was real and we can still do something about it. And so I started Subconscious, honestly, to give NGOs and nonprofits the same ability to change behavior and understand behavior that, Colgate Palmolive has to get people to buy, a certain brand of, dishwashing detergent. Um, and that worked, and now we give away our software to NGOs and nonprofits, and we sell it in the commercial sector in order to fund the NGO work.
How interesting. I don't think I ever knew that story. So that's really, really interesting. And I'm sure you now have a lot of fans. So very cool. Um, well, is there anything that you've gone from zero to what you've got now. Are there any sort of achievements or milestones that you're particularly proud of you and your team?
I mean, I love some of the work that we get. Like people call us to do some wild projects, and so I really like that. I like being able to say no, right? One of my biggest flaws forever, you know, has been, the ability to focus. And my favorite quote is, the ability to focus, or the measure of your ability to focus is how many things you say no to. Um, and so we've been really lucky that we've been able to say no to, to customers and to investors, and so that feels really good. Um, it's that's a proxy for focus. So
Hmm.
I think that helps us focus on improving society. Like I spent so many years on Wall Street where we were trying to measure value, like the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, or start trying to calculate how ESG impacts the markets. And there's really no solution. There's no way that people can understand how much people value um, things that are not denominated in dollars. The best things in life are not things. And now we can do that. Now we can say, this is how much people will trade mental health for capital. This is how much people will trade, social connection for capital. This is how much people will trade, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, and a clean environment, life, liberty, happiness. And so I think now that we can start to measure these things as a society, that we can start to measure the non-market goods or the externalities, finally, maybe we can start investing in those externalities.
Wow. Um, I guess one thing I wanted to ask is how this sort of changes things. So, how do you anticipate as people start to adopt things like subconscious? How do you see their research or their sort of innovation style, et cetera, sort of change over the next while? And I, I guess I'm also interested in just you've got what you have now, and I'm sure you've got other ideas. How do you see subconscious itself evolving over the next while? So I'll start with just the sort of how research is done or innovation is done with your tool, and we can go from there.
I mean, I want to say that it's really bringing down the barrier to entry to performing research. We're seeing a lot of like smaller government organizations. Maybe direct democracy is too expensive, or um, maybe people are no longer responding to government surveys, right? Like there's this big issue with like the FOMC and Quinnipiac are not getting market data on inflation. Like we used to have 95% response rates with inflation surveys, and now the response rates are at 60%. Like ever since Apple made it very easy to screen unknown phone calls, people just don't answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can like fill the gap with government research, maybe to some extent. If you're a well-organized democracy and you're trying to understand what services to provide your population, but you don't want to spend, $200,000 every quarter, running out a new survey to your team, you can run it synthetically and then use that capital much more efficiently. So it's really allowing like smaller organizations to experiment much faster. Um, it's allowing kind of offline businesses to get a similar um, level of analysis, or a similar level of reliability that online businesses have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't run these online experiments that you have in like a supermarket, in a farmer's market, in a shopping center, in the real world. Now with synthetic models, you can start to get that sense. Um, and again, the results are, better than nothing.
Absolutely. Well, you've given us a lot to think about. So, if viewers want to try your tool, how do they get started? Should they reach out to you or go to the website? What do you recommend?
Yeah, go to Subconscious, email partners at subconscious.ai. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Discord. Join our Discord, where our Discord is open, our Discord's public. We have really kind of some of the smartest people in the world in behavioral science there. John, I'm going to force you to get Discord.
Yeah.
so you can join.
Oh, am I? Yeah, I'll join. I'll join your Discord. Fair enough. Well, good. Well, I think I just need to stop here, but it was so interesting and really educational, and definitely inspiring too. What you're doing for, all these NGOs and nonprofits and governmental things, and helping them. So it's really interesting to see how we can use science for good here in this way, in such a thoughtful way. So Avi, thank you so much for sharing Subconscious with us, and I'll just sign us off. So. Um, that's all for today, and thank you so much for tuning in and keeping up with the latest AI for research. And of course, subscribe if you like this, and give us comments about what else you'd like to see next, and what you're thinking about doing with Subconscious. So, wishing you brilliant insights with AI.